John was working in his science lab, got blasted by gamma rays. Now he's Smash Trivia John, always smashing. He's friends with Ruffalo, crushing on Maslany, and also Sydney Sweeney. John's here saying, hello my gamma friends, welcome to the show, the Gamma Analysis Podcast.
Smash.
Hello, my Gamma friends, and happy holidays. Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Smash Trivia John. You can find me on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram by searching Smash Trivia. I'll be the one with the old green head in the profile picture. This is the Gamma Analysis. I'm going to review everything Hulk, all the movies, TV shows, and I also do random other geeky films. Hope you enjoy. Smash Trivia presents the Gamma Analysis. I want to ask everyone listening to please do time for me. Please share the hell out of this podcast with all your friends. If you don't, Hulk will be angry. Now let's smash right into this episode. Today is a review of the first episode of The Simpsons, aka the first Simpsons Christmas special, with my friend Matt from the Low Bearing Beams podcast. How you doing, Matt?
Hello. And might I say, ow, quit it.
Oh man. Oh, so you had mentioned before we the other day that I wanted to talk about comparing this with the what was planned to be the actual pilot episode, and it's interesting to me because I actually feel like this actually works well as a beginning of the show.
Yeah,
it does all the things that you would want out of a pilot episode with this Christmas episode. It introduces the characters, and also with a lot of great pilot episodes, there is something that changes the status quo. And that is that they got Santa's Little Helper.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so the original idea. I totally agree with you, and most of my life I understood this is the first episode of The Simpsons. It blew my mind when I learned that Some Enchanted Evening, the episode that actually ended up airing last in season 1, was both the first episode produced for the show and was intended to serve as the pilot. And the idea was it will debut in September of 1989, and then they'll have 6 or 7 more episodes, and then in December the Christmas episode will air. And it's a really interesting story if you don't know like the history of the Simpsons production. All these TV writers and James L. Brooks, a movie director and TV veteran, and all these people who had never written for animation before, didn't know anything about it, wrote the script for this show like it was a live action show, sent it off to the animation studio, and the animation process takes about 9 months. So when they finally get it back, they're like, oh my God, this looks insane. This looks terrible. And it almost stopped the show from happening. They waited to see how the second episode turned out, and it ended up turning out okay. So they reanimated a large part of Some Enchanted Evening and then pushed it to the end of the season, and then just delayed the start of the show altogether. So like you're airing the first show people ever saw was the 8th episode that they produced, and that ended up being a good thing because they kind of started to figure things out with the show. So it's like the show hits the ground running with this first episode.
It's interesting, seeing like how I assumed the thing, the Simpsons, and really began was that, and now obviously I know that it started with the Tracy Ullman show, but my assumption was that this was meant to be a Christmas special, expanding the characters from the Tracy Ullman show, and then people just liked it so much that they kept it going as an actual show is what I had assumed. That's what it feels like.
That is what it feels like, especially because it starts by saying The Simpsons Christmas Special. And at the time, everybody only knew The Simpsons as these 1-minute shorts from a live action sketch comedy show. But no, it was it was part of Fox had ordered 13 episodes of the series, and this was the 8th episode that they produced.
And also like the Some Enchanted Evening episode I actually really like that placement at the end of the season because it feels like a ramping up of like a most episodes, particularly in the early seasons, there's not a lot of like danger. But then that because of this whole babysitter plot, there's a lot of danger. And I think that works really well for the first season finale of The Simpsons.
Yeah. And it's also interesting that like because the season as it stands is kind of exists with the eighth episode airing first where they get their dog, and then you'll watch six episodes where they don't have a dog. And then also in the third episode, Homer becomes the safety inspector. But then if you go watch Some Enchanted Evening, he's not yet the safety inspector. It's like this one weird case where the Simpsons continuity is like real and doesn't totally make sense. But I'd when I learned all this, yeah, it blew my mind because I bought the Simpsons season one DVD in 2001. It was the first DVD I ever owned, and I loved the Simpsons, but I had never seen any of these episodes because they wouldn't air in syndication.
Yeah.
And like I didn't even like them that much. I was just so desperate for Simpsons. So I watched them over and over again, watched all the special features, and then started watching them with the commentaries.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like the beginning of me becoming obsessed with all this stuff.
One to be honest, as I did my binge watch of The Simpsons, I never even thought of how it didn't match up actually in sync the episodes and I think that as the show goes on it fits together other or more because Santa's little helper or is not in every episode.
Mhm.
So him not appearing in a bunch of episodes in season one just didn't phase me at all.
No, yeah, it's only something you notice if you watch them thousands of times, as I have.
Mm-hmm.
You start like in the Christmas
Uh,
episode, Homer's like walking around the plant with a clipboard, checking off things, and then you realize like, oh, this is him doing his new job as safety inspector, which he gets in a different episode of the show, in the third episode of the show, Homer's Odyssey.
uh,
What do you think of the first season?
um, I I like it somewhat, but I have a hard time with the voices because they're so much different than the voices that are iconic that I know. I I like the iconic voices so much better
Hmm.
than these original voices. These original voices just come off as weird and um kind of like they're trying too hard, if that makes sense.
Well, I think they had not really figured out
Mm-hmm.
what this is. I think the original idea was this is going to be like a normal live action sitcom, but it's animated and has yellow people, and has
Mm-hmm.
like the parents have conversations in bed about the family budget, and then they realize the real comic potential of this show and the talented people
Yeah.
making it.
One thing as I was um rewatching this Christmas episode that I was thinking about that is another reason why I think it really fits as the pilot episode is a lot of pilot episodes both have characters that you never see again, and in this episode we have like multiple characters that Homer names in the audience of the children's play that never pop up
His
again
best
in the
friend Norman. Norman, how you doing? You don't remember all the great episodes Norman is in?
No, no, I don't. I think that as well, like, really does make it feel like it's like a pilot episode because, like, with a lot of pilot episodes, they'll have characters that show up just for the pilot and then never come back.
Yeah, but you do have, you have Mo and Barney and Patty and Selma all appear. So you do
Mm-hmm.
have a lot
Oh
of people
yeah.
who end up being a long-term part of the show. Tell me like what's your Simpsons history?
So I did not grow up watching the show at all. My dad hated adult animation, so he would not allow us to watch it.
Well,
And and so because of that, I was not having any watch as a kid. My first experience with The Simpsons is about probably 5 6 years ago. Just watching a couple episodes at my brother's house, and then like 2.5 years ago, I was like, I want to binge the Simpsons from start to finish, and so I just started watching it. Now I didn't make it my only show that I was watching just because like how my brain works. I can't just watch the same thing for that long. So after certain amounts of time, I would stop and just start binging something else. But I always came back to it, and I thought that it was a really cool experience, and binge watching the entirety of 35 years of Simpsons content.
Yeah, that's wild. I've never met anybody who's watched every Simpsons episode. It's so funny. You're younger than me, and people's relationships to The Simpsons kind of varies with how old they are. So to me, The Simpsons, it's like the language I speak. It's me and my brother speaking Simpsons quotes to each other. And to people my age, like The Simpsons was a thing you watched like in reruns on TV. You'd watch two episodes at 9 and 9:30 every night. But there's always, there's the golden era. There's 8 to 10 years of Simpsons you watch, and after that you check out. And those, like, I don't even know what happens in the rest of the show. Even though I would say The Simpsons is my favorite thing. I like it more than I like any television show or movie or band, but I've never been curious to keep going with it.
I really do encourage you to try because like there are some really good episodes over the years as the show has gotten forward. One that was from a really recent season that I really liked. Like this episode. I think it was called Poorhouse Rock, which it is a episode that is a musical or it has a musical number in it, where it's about out the economic of America and how Bart is not gonna be able to get a job in the future. And I think it's both a really fun episode, but also a very deep episode. And there are a lot of those O's even still in recent years. I think if you can get past the fact that the animation is not what you grew up with, I think that you'll see um some of the the coolness of the recent episodes.
Yeah, whenever because I have watched lots of, newer episodes like season 20 and beyond. I do like it. It's like this. There are good jokes in every episode. I just have to think of it as like this is a different series. It's like I'm watching Bob's Burgers or something because it doesn't look anything like the show that I watch every night before I go to bed because, they both lost literal animators who went to go work on other shows and they switched to digital animation. So the way what I love about the way the early seasons looks just isn't there anymore. The
Mm-hmm.
texture, the roughness, that's just what I love looking at.
Oh, it's interesting. I wonder whether this is just like this is a generational thing, or if this is just because my brain and works differently than a lot of people's. But I actually like the digital animation better because I've always liked when things look really clean and finished.
No, that's that. Okay, yes. I would say that's what I don't like about it. It looks too clean. It just looks too digital. And one of the things I do for a living is graphic design. So it's like
Mhm.
if I could do this on my computer, then I don't want to be watching it. I want to know somebody drew this on a piece of paper and somebody else took a photograph of that and then had to draw it 12 million more times. I get why
I
they do it.
want them
It's
to have more work.
Oh yeah. But that's the other thing is like in the early years they had the budget to do that. And then once, once Fox realized, "Hey, it's way cheaper to do this all on a computer." Of course they're going to
Mhm.
do that.
Well, yeah, makes sense.
And most people, I mean, I think people care about animation quality even if they don't realize that they do. Even if it's not like one thing you would point to as a thing that's changed in the show or
Oh
any
yeah.
movies you watch, but you feel it even if you don't
Oh
like.
yeah. Like there's there are movies that I liked as a kid that when I go back to as an adult, I'm like, I have trouble watching them, even though I know the jokes are still good.
Yeah.
I have trouble watching them just because of the animation. Like one thing particularly that I loved as a kid, that when I look back as an adult, I don't think I could even try and rewatch it because of how bad the animation is. Is Hoodwinked. Have you ever seen that?
I don't think so. I don't even know what there was like a
So
which one was that?
Hoodwinked is a murder mystery film with a whole bunch of animals in it, it has a lot of like very unique jokes and stuff, and it's up and as a kid I absolutely loved it. It was um the film was done where they had where it would be different segments of showing what each character was doing that day, and then a leading up to this murder that happened. And as a kid, I remember loving it, but now as an adult, I don't think I could go back to it because I know that the animation is absolutely awful. Another one that I have that I'm able to still watch, but it does lose a little bit of its enchanting. Is um the first Shrek film and like the first Ice Age film.
Yeah.
I just look at them and I'm like, wow, the animation is so much worse than what things are like today.
Yeah, so I looked it up. I've definitely seen, Hoodwinked. I've seen this image, and it's from this era where all these movies, like there's a Flushed Away and an Open Season, they're
Mhm.
all interchangeable in my head. But you mentioned Shrek, you mentioned Ice Age. This is just a terrible era for digital animation where the technology just wasn't there.
Mhm.
So that's why it ages so badly. Even though the jokes in Shrek are good, Shrek is
Oh
terrible to
yeah.
look at.
Yeah,
It's dreadful. I did a one thing I do on my YouTube and my TikTok is try to look at sort of like quasi forgotten animated movies. So maybe I'll make a hoodwinked video. But you look at something like The Prince of Egypt from 1999, which was completely hand drawn, and there's nothing like it. It's gorgeous. This is it's a 25-year-old movie, but they put in the resources and used the technology that has been around for 100 years, and it ages so much better than digital
Mhm.
CGI and even the digital animation
Yeah.
that The Simpsons was doing like around season 15.
I feel like there's as well though, like there's like this in between thing that that there was some shows during the early 2000s that had that at least to me didn't really feel like they were drawn, but also didn't feel like the typical digital animation feel, which was which a lot of the shows that I liked growing up were like this with stuff like What's New Scooby Doo, Ben 10, Teen Titans, and it doesn't quite feel like the typical CGI eye animation, but it also doesn't feel like drawn animation. I don't know what those are.
Yeah, I don't know how those shows were made, but just to be clear, like digital animation can be great. You can do great
Mm.
things
Oh
with
yeah,
it. I think with The Simpsons, it is because I know it from its
yeah, I
'90s
understand.
heyday, and now it
I
just doesn't look normal to me.
I think as I said in the video that I made, I truly think a lot of the disdain and a lot of older Simpsons fans have for the newer content is because isn't exactly what they grew up with. If Because I genuinely do think that their writing is still very genius writing.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, it is also in the Simpsons like glory days, the way they made the show, they would cycle out showrunners. The writers they'd have different writing teams like every 2 years. Seasons 1 and 2 have has a showrunner, Sam Simon. 3 and 4 have Al Jean and Mike Reese. 5 and 6 have a different one. 7 and 8 have a different one. And it's like that really seemed to keep them invigorated. Starting with season 13, Al Jean was the sole showrunner and basically has been that since 2003. And like how it'd be difficult for anybody to, I mean, well, it's difficult to make anything good for forever. It's kind of impossible, but especially when you just keep the same people in
I do
charge.
think though that they have done a good job at still to this day being able to come up with fresh ideas for episodes. Like this, the current season that's going on, its season premiere, they did something that I think is really cool. They both were parodying season or series finales as commenting on how terrifying the studios using AI is, and it created this really fun thing as as even though the episode is not actually the Simpsons series finale, they acted like it was, and the whole plot of the episode is about Bart trying to make sure that it doesn't end because he doesn't like this like that uh it ending means that the status quo changes and the is and people start moving away and stuff like that. And I thought that made a really cool episode of. And I think there's a lot of episodes that are still coming up with very unique ideas for episodes. There was an episode in I think the previous season where we actually learned why Homer's never permanently lost his safety inspector job. And apparently all this time he's had a fake workstation agent. They Mr. Burns earns apparently for some reason has to keep him on as an employee, but they know that he's awful at his job, so they give him a fake workstation while somebody else is actually the one who's watching the nuclear reactor.
So it's like what they're going to do with Trump in this next administration. Just give him his own Oval Office. We'll send him some papers and stuff that he can sign, and
If
he'll just have a
only
good
that would
time.
happen.
No, it's like a kid with a fake cash register or a fake cell
Yeah.
phone.
Man. And
If you make me a list of newer Simpsons episodes I should watch, and I will do it.
Okay. I'll make a list of like 10 episodes, so it's not too much for you to watch. But yeah, uh, I
Part
think
of it is
those
just like
choices.
I watch it every night before I go to bed, and it's like there's a specific thing I want as I'm falling asleep,
Mhm.
and so just sitting
Yeah,
down at like 7 o'clock at night to watch an episode of The Simpsons is strange to me.
I understandable. So I'm never or like actually like watching the show as it airs just because I don't have regular TV anymore. But or so I just like randomly at some point throughout the week I'll watch the new episode. But yeah,
It's still popular. Like it's Fox's
oh yeah.
highest rated show on Sunday night. That blows my mind.
I'm I'm honestly really surprised that it's nearly been 20 years and we haven't gotten a second Simpsons movie.
I think that was really expensive, but yeah, they should
Mhm.
just do it.
Yeah, like
Um,
I think that would be. I think they would get a lot of money from doing another.
well, they did a Bob's Burgers movie 2 years
Mhm.
ago, which I really liked, and I went and saw it in theaters because it was like, I don't even love Bob's Burgers, but it's like um, a 2D animated film being released in theaters. I got to go see it, and it looked beautiful. It was amazing,
Mm.
and it didn't really do that well. But I feel like when we talked earlier this year, we talked about like the movie industry being in shambles and not seeming to know what they're doing. I think that with the Moana 2 success, I think maybe they're starting to realize, like, we have a good thing going here with this model of put movies in theaters and people will go pay to see it in theaters. Maybe things will start to get more normal again and we'll stop having these
Maybe.
fake movies debuting on streaming. Because, like, you could totally see a Simpsons movie made for Disney Plus or made for Hulu. That wouldn't feel very special.
Yeah, no, I don't. I would not. They have announced some episodes are gonna be made exclusively for Disney Plus, but I do want an actual movie and it should be released in theaters. Especially since it's like obviously since I didn't grow up watching the show, I wasn't able to go see the movie in theaters. I would love to be able to watch some Simpsons content in the theater.
It was truly, I teared up in 2007 when I saw it on the big screen just to see Springfield like huge. And I don't even love the Simpsons movie, but it's like that. I'll never forget that feeling. Like, oh, it's my
Yeah,
people I love and the place I love.
it's oh I think the Simpsons movie is a lot of fun.
Yeah,
Though I do think there are some things in it that I just think are very weird choices. I was just like, who is this for? Or like they
you
show
think
Bart's dick.
Yeah, you think they,
Like
they didn't show
why?
enough they didn't show enough child penis, you're
Oh
saying. You need to
God.
really double down on that.
Definitely not.
No, for me, what annoys me about the movie is that they leave Springfield. Don't leave Springfield, stay in Springfield.
Yeah,
You've got
you
the best
definitely
like
want.
fictional setting in history.
I think honestly, if they were to make another Simpsons movie, um, they should use that to be like and obviously you'd want to do it once like the show is like actually nearing its ending or is actually at its end, but I think it would be cool for them to use it to reveal something that the show has been hiding for 35 years, which is what state is this aid is Springfield Yield in?
Oh, I don't want to know that. Oh, don't tell me that.
Oh man.
I guess.
But I don't know. I just like the idea of like having a movie reveals something big that fans have wanted to know for the longest time. It doesn't have to be the state. There's probably something else that they could do, but I think of a fun on the seaside like that. Yeah, I agree. Like keep it actually in Springfield. It's
And they talked about how they considered having Mr. Burns or Sideshow Bob be the villain of the movie or bringing back a villain like Hank Scorpio, but they were worried that people who didn't watch the show wouldn't understand it. And it's like, oh, that sucks. No, you got to have confidence about what you're putting on.
you're making this show, this movie, because the show did is doing so well. Then you should understand that you could have characters from the show be the actual villain. That
I
doesn't
know.
make sense. Um,
I kind of like these. I know a lot of people don't like them, but these Maggie Simpson shorts, um, I kind of like that idea of like trying to explore different ways, different things in the Simpsons universe. I love Maggie Simpson. I wish, I like putting her center more. I realize
yeah,
these are basically like for
I think
babies, but
the um Maggie is a character. I think they started doing those because they can't really get much storyline from her in the actual show, just due to the fact that she can't talk. And that and I like those shorts on Disney Plus too. I think it it makes me think about how as I mentioned in the video that I made about I think that they should change the status quo and actually age these characters up a little bit. At the very least, make it so that you can have Maggie talk because I do think that there are a lot of storylines they could do with Maggie if they just this stop the running joke of her not being able to talk.
hmm
Uh, and um And I think my feelings about wanting to break that status quo and letting them age is probably partially just due to the fact that I love the future episodes that they do. Those are some of the most fun episodes to me. Is seeing them as adults and stuff, and I think also if you break that status quo and start to let these characters age, um, it'll help to make it so there will be a definitive end point for the show, and also so that as these voice actors get older, they can actually like at some point retire and not be a they not have to deal with another situation like with the voice actress for Bart's teacher. I um I would much rather see these characters or some of these characters get to retire and the voice actors retire than um have this all of a sudden and the characters just aren't appearing anymore because the actor passed away. And like, what do you do when that happens to someone like Dan Castanella when he's such an integral part of the show?
What I'm worried they're going to do is just do AI.
I would hope not,
Um,
especially since the writers of the show are very clearly against AI.
yeah, I know. I just every day I feel like there's a
Mhm.
new story about like a filmmaker like Zack
Uh,
Snyder's like, hey, we have to embrace
uh-huh.
AI, and it's just like
Well,
more and more people will start to feel that way.
so the reason I say that the writers are against AI is two things. One, they've had multiple episodes in recent seasons talking about out how bad AI is, but also they were are one of the shows that the writers chose to be on the forefront with the strikes
Hmm.
trying to be against AI. So unless Fox and Disney forces it upon them, I don't think they would.
Yeah. One thing that is so, The Simpsons, like the way it was created, the time it came out, the people who made it, it's all like it could only have happened when it did. And it's like a miracle because James L. Brooks, who was so powerful in Hollywood, and Matt Groening negotiated the deal with Fox where and Fox was a brand new network, so they
Mm-hmm.
had to give in to this deal, is we don't get notes from the network. We're basically creatively independent. And that still remains the case to this day, which is like totally unique in television that
Uh,
they don't have to answer to network higher ups. It's the people who they have to answer to are Brooks and Groening, who are themselves artists. Um, so you would hope that that's still the case, and they could always veto any decision like that. But they're old; they're gonna die.
yeah, at some point, yeah, and that's another reason why I say I want the show to have a definitive endpoint. So, not just for the voice actors, but with these writers as well. If all these writers die, and and Matt Groening dies, then if the show continues on, it's just gonna be completely different.
Hmm.
And I don't want to have another change in the Simpsons how the Simpsons is I think as well. Just a lot of fans would appreciate having the show wind down and have and like I think it would even bring back some old fans if they found out there was like this finality to the show.
Hmm. Yeah, it's interesting if they had like ended the show at season 12 or so, and then brought it back Or like Futurama has had Matt Groening's other show has had
Mm-hmm.
multiple like cancellations and revivals, and there's one going on right now, and that always feels like a bigger deal. I could totally see something like that having happened, but because Simpsons never stopped, and then that gave other shows like South Park and Family Guy permission to also never stop. It's like, no, you just keep going. You just keep going until the sun burns out.
It is very interesting to me, like how that this is not the show that I would have expected would have became the longest running. I think it is the longest running primetime TV show. That's at least still running.
Yeah, scripted, yes, because
Yeah.
I think like SNL is has been on
Mm-hmm.
longer, but
That
for scripted sitcoms, yes.
like that's I it kind of surprised me because like this is not the kind of show I would have expected would have lasted, but I think it's cool that it has as because it's cool. It would be cool any show. To be honest, us have lasting this long. And uh, also that means also just from a human standpoint, I love that this has kept all of these people employed for 35 years.
Yeah, it's a nice gig, including many of the like original writers and producers like are on retainer. They come in once a week and give notes. It is like a nice little employment program. But you know, the people who made it like in those early seasons also didn't think it was going to go on. Like they
Mm-hmm.
thought we'll probably end around season 4, season 5. I don't know, because
I mean,
nothing goes on
yeah,
forever,
no,
and that's why they
nobody
start.
thinks things are gonna last for a long time at the start.
But that's also why they started doing things like Homer can go to space. You can heighten these things because they're like, oh, the show's going to end soon. What does it
Mhm.
matter? Not knowing like, well, it's going to go on for 30 more years, and it's hard to keep this grounded. Especially, I mean, compare it to this first
you
episode,
know,
which is so grounded.
the Homer going to space is such a funny thing to me because like when I watched that episode, it kind of feels like a throwaway episode, but it is one thing that they have consistently a over the past 35 years is still to this day a occasionally reference the fact that he
Yeah,
went to space. Is-
it's great. It's great. I didn't know that until I got the DVDs and listened to the commentaries. I didn't know that that was a controversial choice. Because to me, it was like, what do you mean? Homer goes to space. That's what happens. That's what he does. But to people watching it in real time, like this
I,
is outrageous.
I think it's like another thing that's interesting about like the start of the show versus like that like once it started getting like 5, 10 seasons in is like when I was starting to binge the show. Oh, I knew that over the years there's been so many celebrity cameos, and as I was starting the show, I was like, I'm interested in where those start because there's because it did not start at the beginning. They did not have immediately a tons of celebrity cameos, and I wonder whether that is was just a popularity thing, or if that was also sign of like on a sign of like with Homer Goes to Space of the show thinking the show might be ending soon, so let's just go wacky.
I think that in the first season, the biggest name they have is Albert Brooks, and he appears. His credit is A. Period Brooks. Like it was like you don't even want to use your real name in the credits. And then season 2 they have Dustin Hoffman, and season 3 they have Michael Jackson. Neither of whom appeared under their real names. It was like a shameful thing. You can't say that you were on The Simpsons. But then
I
season 3
I
they
kind
have
of
the
feel like that was not just a Simpsons thing, but also just like animation in general,
oh
because
yeah,
there's such a disdain from some people for animation, and still
absolutely.
today.
Yes, absolutely. But there were not, you know, animated sitcoms for adults. Even though kids, it was like it
Mm.
was still most popular with kids, but intended to be for adults airing in prime time. This was a brand new thing, so it did seem a little weird. Like Dustin Hoffman, two-time Oscar winner, is going to go be a voice. He's going to play Lisa's teacher. That's weird. But then season three, they have the baseball episode with all the baseball stars, and I think that's when they realized like we could get a lot of celebrities on this show,
Oh,
and people will like it. And they were
oh
right.
yeah. The one celebrity I loved his main appearances, and it kind of saddens me that ever since then he's only ever appeared for two cameos. Is Danny DeVito being Homer's brother?
Mm-hmm.
Like I think there's so many interesting stories you could do with him, but after his initial I think like two appearances, he's relegated to just appearing in cameos every once in a while. And I'm like, I I want to see more or interesting stories with him. Like something we didn't see in those original two episodes is that I particularly would love to see is the storyline with him and Grandpa
Yeah.
because that's his father too. But they never like made that an important point with the two original episodes. And I want to see what their relationship would be like, and I think they could have some fun with maybe like Homer being jealous of him as like I wouldn't be surprised if um at least during one of the times where he is rich, Homer's dad is like very lovey dovey on him.
Yeah.
And I think that would make for a really fun episode.
Yeah, there's got to be because you said he did come back a third time.
Yeah, he's come back twice since then, but both are for just one line cameos.
Oh. Yeah, this seems like a no-brainer. Like I'm
Yeah,
shocked it hasn't happened because Glenn Close came
they
back as
could
his
have.
mom at least once.
Yeah, she's come back a whole bunch of times. And she's another character who I would have loved to get an episode with her in Homer's brother. Sadly, that's not really something that can happen now because her character has passed away. But like I think that would be so much fun to see his reaction to meeting her, or not just Homer's, or yeah, there's yeah, I think that is like the one celebrity who I want I really care about seeing come back. Since most of them just play themselves, so it's like,
Yeah.
okay,
That was another special thing about the show, at least in the early years, is celebrities would not play themselves. They'd play characters. And at a certain point they just played themselves. It's like
yeah,
Mel
it's an
Gibson is in this
interesting
episode as Mel Gibson.
it's an interesting thing to me because like I find it weird a little bit there when they play themselves because it's like they say that they came into town to shoot a movie or something. And it's like is Springfield really that big of a
Mhm.
town that they would do that? That like, but and like yeah, they have movie studios there in town, but those movie studios to me always seemed like public broadcasting,
Yeah,
not actual big stuff up and then but then again and they've never seemed very sure about whether they want to say that Krusty is a local talent or if he's a
exactly.
global
Yes.
talent.
Is he a historic icon who's friends with all these great comedy legends, or yeah, is he a local public access clown? That's the charm, though. I like they
uh,
call it rubber band reality. They can
I,
stretch it. Things can change, and it'll always just snap back to the status quo.
the one thing though that I'm glad that they have not done that I could absolutely see them doing with is since Krusty has gotten himself into a lot of hot water so many times, I'm glad they've never tried to have him go extremely right wing and like because like I could absolutely see them parodying how a lot of celebrities when they get into hot water they immediately go to the right.
Yeah, and then become even more popular and make even
Like
more money.
I'm glad they haven't done that because like I'm pretty sure Krusty is technically supposed to be right wing in the show if I remember right, but I'm glad they haven't like had him go to any kind of extremes because I don't think I would enjoy the character nearly as much if they did.
Um, I wonder, like, in terms of its politics, or I mean, should we talk about the first episode? Because I think it's
Yeah.
so interesting how much the show grounds you in this is a working class family that is kind of ruined by not getting a Christmas bonus, which is like
Yeah,
just such a
it's an interesting thing. I'm like, when I was watching, I'm like, one of the ways you can tell that this is very early on in the show is they hadn't decided yet that everything would be Homer's fault. He just didn't get a Christmas
yeah, that's
bonus. It
true.
wasn't his fault or anything. And I think Marge would have understood if he told her older, I didn't get my Christmas bonus this year. She wouldn't be angry at him,
Yeah.
or if she was, it'd be a pretty insane of her.
Yeah, and that I I've never thought of that. Yes, it's if this were literally season two, it would have been something he fucked up that caused this to happen. But
Yeah,
they say like, hey, the plant's profits have never been higher, and safety's also super high, but no Christmas bonuses for our workers because that would mean the CEO would have to take a pay cut. Um,
hmm
but I really like that class awareness, even though this is a family, with one breadwinner who has this giant house. I think that's
I
just how it
love.
was back then. We're watching so many '90s movies on our podcast where it's like, I'm sorry, this family, the McAllister family in Home Alone has one person who makes money and they live in a
Yeah,
fucking mansion.
I love with the Home Alone movies there's been so many theories about what did Kevin's father do for work to make him that rich. They never explain that ever.
Because
What
I
does
think
he
that
do?
I think that Lacey disagrees with me, my wife and co-host. I think the movie's not aware that they're rich or that they're coming across as rich. I think this is like really successful Hollywood people being like, what do regular people live like? And they're not
I
aware.
wouldn't be surprised.
But I mean, especially back then, it's like this is what a normal middle class family is like. Now I watch this episode of The Simpsons. It's like, hey, imagine having a job. Period. Imagine having a job where you get a bonus. I've been a freelancer for 10 years. I'm literally going through this right now. Like, God, I miss having a job where I got a bonus. Everything is
Understandable.
so precarious, just dependent on when my clients want to pay me or when they have stuff for me to do. Christmas sucks. What do you think of Christmas? You a Christmas person?
I like Christmas. Um, don't end up usually end up doing a lot for it though, just because
It's
stuff is expensive.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, every year it's just a ball of stress and just worry about how
Uh,
expensive everything is. And it's yeah, like me and my wife are both freelancers. This is our very slow time of the year. And but I realized I felt like last Christmas was bad, but now I'm looking back at last Christmas and I'm like, oh, those were good times. So I'll be doing that again in a year from now. So I just need to keep that in mind. I like Christmas once it's over. I'll always have the memories.
mhm. Oh yeah, that's one thing where I'm like, as I've become an adult, I'm just like every Christmas, I'm just like, this doesn't have the enchanting feel that I want it to have.
Yeah. And people have felt that way. There's an editorial cartoon that I cannot find, but I've seen it multiple times. And it was on a Reddit thread I was on that just shows you editorial cartoons from 100 years ago today. And at some point in the past few years, I saw an editorial cartoon that was from like 1921 or 22, and it was saying that people today in 1922 are complaining about how Christmas is stressful and doesn't feel as magical as it did Once Upon a Time, and then in the same cartoon, it then flashes back 75 years before that, where a person was saying the same thing. So it's like this is always something
I
people
think
have felt.
it's just when you become an adult, you feel like that.
Yeah.
It's not, and um, no, yeah. And I think about this Christmas episode that I think is interesting, and particularly because it is like it may not have been meant to be the first episode, but ended up being it is um Ned Flanders in this is not treated as the anally Christian in person he is now, or at least my perception of Christianity, he's not treated like that at all because with my family growing up, my dad as part of his roles because of us being in Christian and we were not allowed to basically do any decorating, and it's so
Wow.
because um it was like taking the Christ out of Christmas,
Hmm.
and that's and to see a Ned and with this whole basically Griswold family style house of house covered in lights. Say Merry Christmas it just feels like a little different from how he is as the show goes forward.
And he even says happy holidays to Homer. It's like Ned, excuse me, but Ned, they hadn't figured out the Christian part of his character. He
Yeah.
was just a yuppie. He was his role was I am what Homer is not. I'm
Yeah.
successful and a good husband and father. But he is like the it's funny, Christmas Vacation came out the weekend before this episode aired, and they have kind of similar plots. And Ned is kind of like the Griswold's neighbors. They're yuppie neighbors who are everything that Clark Griswold is not.
Yeah. Like even down to like those light scenes and feel very much like the Christmas Vacation
Hmm.
lighting scenes.
Yeah, I kept waiting for the scene where the lights would all come on at the same time and blind everybody. It's like, oh, that's no, that's that movie.
uh, um, uh, they have and I'm pretty sure I could be remembering wrong, but I feel like there was also like in the Christmas Vacation and they also had some crazy way that they got their tree just like with
Yeah,
this
yeah, he
so
just
like
goes and chops it down from outside.
mhm. The but I think this episode, as I said at the beginning, it does a really good job of showing us who these characters are like we have um Homer being or who he is kind of a doofus, but he is a good father, and then you have I do the one character I think that doesn't get nearly as much as maybe they should is getting to know Marge, but then and with we get to know very quickly exactly who Lisa and Bart are. We have with like moments of like Lisa's presentation at the Christmas pageant and her not wanting Patty and Selma to insult her father, and then and with Bart, Art, we immediately have his rebellious side, him getting that tattoo, and one thing though about the characters that absolutely did change as the show went on is we don't really get much after this of Bart and Lisa having that same dislike for Patty and Selma that Homer does.
Hmm. Yeah, and Patty and Selma seem like they don't live in the town with them. They're coming in from out of town to visit, but it's still so mild. It's like either Patty or Selma is talking to Marge on the phone. She's like, "I still can't believe you married him when he's so rude to us." And that's just the joke. The joke is
As if
he's rude to
they're
us.
not rude back. But, yeah, I thought it was like so interesting how we see Bart and Lisa actively disliking their time with Patty and Selma, which is like not something that they really do much later. I know they have like some moments where they don't want to go stay at
Right.
Selma and Patty and Selma's house, but not. But never like sign like where they're actively like I don't like you. I want to be with my dad. And I kind of wish they did keep that because I think that would
Yeah.
think that that would have been created it's some fun storylines that lines making it so that not every Patty and Selma storyline would have Homer being the one that's it's upset with them.
Yeah, I'd like that too. I like when the kids are on Homer's side. And
Yeah.
I like they hadn't totally figured out Lisa. Like they know she's smart because she has her precocious speech to Aunt Patty. But the only real characterization they had for her in the shorts is that she's just a female Bart. And then they start
Mhm.
figuring out she wants a pony. Okay, that's another thing to her character. But I do like I've always one of my favorite things about the show is when Lisa is amused by Bart's pranks and his jokes and stuff. So I like that they're on each other's side in this episode.
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely. Like that's and I think there's even like a little bit of that female version of Bart still in her there in this episode, which I like that because I think it is always fun when she gets to let loose as well. They don't do that a lot going forward, but they do that occasionally. And, yeah, I most of the characters in this it's like I we talked about how their voices are different because they were just starting. I think the only two characters where they really are actually there might be four characters but that actually really feel like who they will become is um Lisa's band teacher or sounds exactly like he still does now.
Yeah.
Grandpa Simpson and sounds basically the same, and then Patty and Selma seem very similar to how they are now, and I like that there's at least a few characters who they knew from the start how they were going to have them sound.
Yeah, because Mr. Largo, the band teacher, he's just not in the show very much, so there's not much chance for his
Yeah,
voice to evolve.
Mr. Largo, like he's appeared more in recent seasons, and um at the start of the show though when I was doing my binge and I was like for the first like probably like 5-10 seasons I was like where is Mr. Largo? Why do they not do anything with him like it's so weird for a character to be a prominent part of the opening of each episode and then them not do anything with
Yeah.
him in the actual
You're like, yeah,
show.
I better keep my eye on this guy. He's going to be important later on. I don't know. They didn't figure out a thing with him because they'd have these background characters who they'd be surprised that they loved. It's interesting to see people like Skinner, where the joke of him is that he mispronounces words, and that's it. That's the joke with him. And you would never believe that from here, like in a couple years, he's going to be like one of television's greatest ever characters,
Oh yeah.
for totally unrelated reasons. It's just one of the charms of the first season and of this episode. I mean, I like the way it looks. I like the jankiness. It is like when you love a band and they have a first album that's not necessarily that good, but you're like, I can see the house you're
Mm-hmm.
building. I can see the future
Oh yeah.
coming in before you. But if the only thing that The Simpsons ever existed was this, I don't know how entertaining I would find any of it.
Uh,
Even though I laughed
I
like
think
10
the
times watching this
best,
episode.
to me, I think the best moment in this episode has to be when Homer and Bart actually get Sam's little helper, and Bart's like, can we keep him, Dad? And Homer's like, but he's a loser,
Hmm.
a loser.
He's
or that
a
he,
Simpson.
yeah, he's a Simpson. And like that's like I haven't actually like heard a lot over the years, but it does feel like something that is an iconic line. And I love that. I love that moment so much. And even though I don't like these original voices, I think that that line only works with this voice. It does. I don't think it would work as well with the current voice.
No, it wouldn't. And all of his stuff, like you know, how sweet he is with Marge, how much he's trying to be a good father to his kids. That also requires this sort of him doing a
Yeah.
Walter Matthau impression. You wouldn't believe it in the later, like, standard Homer voice.
Another line, a line from him that I love more from him that I love was when he first finds out about the them not having any money in the jar. He's just like, all right, Christmas is canceled.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, there's all these little moments where you're like, oh, that's the Homer I know, or that's the
Oh,
Marge I know. They're there. That's what's so
and,
fascinating about season one is them figuring it out.
you know, I think um I'm probably one of the only people who think this, but I personally think that Homer is a much better person than people give him credit for. Or like I've heard so many times over the years people being like, "Oh, he's just this horrible father and horrible person," and yeah, he strangles his son, but I kind of remove that and just look at like the actual things that they're trying for, like being like him strangling Bart is just supposed to be a comedic little thing, but like when you actually look at all the storylines, when push comes to shove, he clearly cares about his kids.
Hmm.
I think though, on the other hand, and as the show goes on, I on Marge, I don't think is as great of a person as what people think. Yeah, she loves her kids, but I don't think she has nearly as much compassion as she should for Homer. And like he's like Homer clearly he has some mental things going on, and when your husband has some of those things, you should have a bit more compassion towards him, and when he messes up, and not just immediately think he's the worst, which she very easily thinks he's the worst.
It's hard because I mean, there's 800 episodes, so they've
Yeah,
done so many different things. But I
yeah.
kind of agree. I mean, I love how much she loves Homer. I've always loved that.
Mm-hmm.
I like that they have at least a good, romantic relationship, even if they're not
Yeah.
ideal partners or parents. But I like the way you put it, that she's not like this paragon of virtue that you might think.
Oh yeah, definitely not. I'm not saying that she's is the only character in the show who has raped someone.
When did that happen?
She raped Homer in the episode where she gets ripped.
I've seen that episode, but I don't remember it.
Yeah, they just treated it as a joke, a joke that she of him doing that. I'm like, that's like I get that they have to find stuff to do in over 800 episodes, but and the culture around if women do things like that, I was different back then. And this was like an episode in the early 2000s, but it still is just like when I watched that, I was immediately like, what?
Mhm.
That just happened, and we're just moving on. Really?
Yeah. No,
That's
nobody thought of it like that at the time.
and I'm
No, if anything, you thought it
I
was
don't
hot.
know. I was like I'm just like I'm someone who has I have trouble with like looking at things from the time that they released. I'm like if it's bad now, it was bad then. People just didn't realize and eyes and I'm um even though it was even though it's not wasn't meant to be signed that I dwell on as continue watching the show, that sign that I can't forget at that she did, and it kind of just slanted my view of her going forward for the rest of the show.
Is she on steroids or something? Is that
Yeah,
what's going on?
steroids. Yeah.
Yeah. So you can always chalk it up to that. It wasn't her, it was the roids. I yes, things are right or wrong, and you look back at the past and you have a different understanding. But applying context and realizing like people, I think it is a valid thing to say like we did not know this at the time, or we did not have this understanding at the time. And in some cases you could, in some cases you can't, but it's a good thing that we always move forward and we keep learning.
Yeah, to be honest, as for me, if like how I've grown to feel about how things that are problematic in media is, I actually am more okay with it with stuff in present day when it happens, because I'm able to feel like that like that's probably not how they actually feel in real life. They're just portraying signs bad versus like with older content. I'm like, I don't know if I don't know if that's not actually how they feel. The people behind this felt out about these things, and um like I personally have a lot of trouble with the R slur being in films because my dad called me it a lot growing up,
Jesus.
and I and but when I see it in a recent film, it still annoys me, but I'm at least able to be like, I don't think these people actually feel this way in real life. They're just portraying a character who's not morally great. A versus with older content, and like I reviewed an episode of out of the '70s Hawk TV show where it was used a lot, and I had a lot of trouble with that because I'm like, this being from the '70s, I don't know that I know that the people behind this weren't people who would just use those words all the time.
Well, they were. I
Yeah,
that word was
and and
that
that
word.
makes me feel more not okay with something, knowing that the people behind it actually felt that way. If that makes
Well,
sense.
I mean, by felt that way, you mean what? That they felt like this is an
Felt
okay
like they
thing to
can
say?
just felt like they can insult people who have mental disabilities.
Yeah. I hate that word too, and I feel like I'm kind of worried because I feel like it's having a little bit of a comeback,
Oh yeah,
which I'm not happy
it's
about.
annoying.
My son is autistic, and I always just think of him hearing that, and
Oh
you
yeah.
know, and I don't, way before I had my son, I made an effort to get that out of my vocabulary because growing up, that was just a word you said all the
Mm-hmm.
time, and your defense would be like, "That's not what I mean. I'm just calling
Yeah.
you stupid." Um, so yes, absolutely. In the '70s, all the way up through, I don't even know, 2012, that was
Yeah.
just a thing people said
Yeah,
all the time.
and it's just an it's just that's just how my brain works of being like sign that's older. I'm less okay with it using things versus in present day. I seem to be more okay with it just because I know that they don't actually feel like I know that the people behind it don't most likely feel like these feel like they
Well,
should put down on people who are with mental disabilities or with other slurs of or people who are different races. Is like I don't think that I think that if it's used in present day that it's going that it means that they felt that felt like they can put down people of other races if the N word is used. But if I watch something from the on thing from the 60s or 70s and it was used, I would absolutely think that that's how the people were in real life.
Well,
I
I
like
so with that though, I think that it's always important when you're looking at the past, you do need to give people a little credit and say like you also knew. Like with something like that, especially in the 60s,
oh
that
yeah,
word. They knew what they knew,
yeah.
and I wouldn't say that in that
I
case like
hate
depiction means endorsement.
yeah. I don't know. They one particular thing, and I absolutely know that about that it makes it so I that even though my family watched a lot of these films growing up, I will never watch these again. Is John Wayne films because I know for a fact that he was racist. He literally has said in interviews that he would only put black people in his films in the role of slaves because he said that is there where they should be. That's
Yeah,
who
no,
they should be.
not a great man, not an ideal person. Even at the time with John Wayne, though, people at the time knew he was racist and
Mhm.
backward. So, like, I think you can think like that's how
They just
everybody thought. It's like, no, not necessarily. He even at
uh,
the time was known as a very extreme racist and
mm,
backward person.
yeah.
But the other thing I think that is important to keep in mind is we ourselves will look back on what we think right
Mm-hmm.
now and the things we said, and we will say, I can't believe we said that. I can't believe we used that word. There's all kinds of different ways
Mm-hmm.
of thinking about things in the future that we can't even
And I'm
anticipate.
and I'm not trying to say that anybody is wrong for or like seeing things differently. That's just how my brain sees
Yeah.
it. Is it like I've mentioned to you before. I don't like Quentin Tarantino's films because their use of the N word, but that doesn't mean that I have a problem with other people enjoying them.
Yeah, and that's the right. I mean, that's the right attitude to have. We did an episode about Pulp Fiction, and we talked about it with our guests, the Real for Real podcast. Everybody check them out, and just so everybody knows, they're three black men, and we had a long conversation
Mm.
about how we felt about the scene. And what makes it so weird is that Quentin Tarantino writes himself into
Yeah,
the movie.
that's the thing
It's
that
so
really pisses me
strange.
off about it. Is like he wrote himself a role to make him be able to say that. I'm like, that feels very fucked. And did I also just don't like Quentin Tarantino in real life because of his because he's defended a pedophile. I'm
Which
like,
one?
Roman Polanski, I believe, is who he defended. He went on the Howard Stern show in the 2000s and was saying that he doesn't think it was wrong because the 13-year-old wanted it.
I don't think he would say that today. Just to be fair to
Yeah, I don't
Quentin.
know.
Now you're like, yeah, he couldn't have known better. He was only 47 years old when he said that. Um,
But
his
I don't. But as I said, like just because I feel this way about him doesn't mean I have a problem with other people enjoying his work and art. I'm able to like separate my feelings personally from the fact that I do know that his work is some genius his films.
Yeah, and he says in regards to the N word, and his tendency, at least in his past movies, to put himself into the movie and use it himself. The like, well, if you have a problem with it, just don't see my movies. And I respect that attitude more than like you don't understand or I'm sorry if you're offended or it was a different time. He has just the very
Well,
straightforward like, look, I get it. If it's not for you, you shouldn't see it.
you know, there have been in recent years a lot of interviewers trying to ask Samuel L. Jackson about it, and I think that's kind of messed up on the part of these interviewers because
It's not his job
yeah,
to.
Samuel L. Jackson. It's not Samuel L. Jackson's job to defend Quentin Tarantino. Quentin Tarantino can do that himself. It's
Or to speak for black
you're
people
putting
or to give permission. It's just
yeah
this is
you're
an
putting this
individual.
on. You shouldn't be putting this on him. And it's not his fault that and he's not Quentin Tarantino's keeper.
Right. And he has said he's okay with it, but it's like, but okay,
Yeah,
you only speak for yourself.
yeah.
And this is your friend,
And
and also
Spike,
you're both two very rich and powerful people, and you represent yourselves.
the only thing that the only um thing where I actually like get annoyed at Quentin Tarantino fans and about it is when they have a problem with me not wanting to watch his films because of it. I'm
Hmm.
like why should why should I have to watch something that makes me uncomfortable just because you like his stuff? Like that's like it's hey, if I don't mind you watching it, but why do you have a problem with me being against it?
I mean, so much of so much of like online discourse is that like,
Yeah, like
how about you just like worry
I've
about
been
yourself?
I've literally been told that I'm not allowed to dislike like Pulp Fiction before, and I'm like, what the hell? That's so dumb.
No, I think it's in the Bill of Rights. Um, no, I know. I learned in therapy a long time ago. The best advice I ever got was it's okay for other people to be wrong. They're allowed to be wrong.
and,
And
and
all I
I
have to worry about is myself and how I
oh,
feel about that.
mhm. Oh, wait, but I don't even know how we got onto this, but we've strayed a lot from off of
That's what
talking
we
about the
do.
Simpsons,
That's okay.
and I no, I love going off in tangents, but I do like once in a while after there's been a long time, I do try to I bring it back. I Is there any like final things you'd like to talk about with either this particular Simpsons episode or just the Simpsons in general?
Yeah, well, there's so much. I David Silverman directed the directed Simpsons Roasting on an Open Fire, and he's the Simpsons director. He's the one who directed the movie. He was the supervising animator for a long time. He left the show and worked on Monsters Inc. and worked on some movies, and then came back, and he's still with the Simpsons to this day. But it's just very fitting that the first broadcast episode was directed by David Silverman. It was written by Mimi Pond, a woman. So the first episode of the show was written by a woman, but she was
Nice,
not hired to be on the writing staff because the showrunner at the time, Sam Simon, said we don't want a woman on the writing staff. They'll
great.
ruin the mood. And so that fucking sucks. And it was a
Yeah,
few years before they hired a woman writer
it's
full time.
kind of that yeah, that's kind of annoying. And I mean it it kind of pushes against my belief that that even in the early days the Simpsons writers were pretty progressive. I like so many of the only episodes of the early days. I watch them. And I'm like, this is some pretty progressive stuff for the '90s. Like they have an episode where Homer is homophobic, but they treat it as if it's a bad thing.
Hmm.
They have and then also I think with also I, I and I know this is just a conspiracy theory, but I personally think that they were alluding to Grandpa might not be cis. Is I think he might. I think Grandpa might be either gender fluid or trans. Um and in those early episodes, I feel like they were teasing that and saying that due to the time he was taking medication to make him seem more quote unquote normal. Whenever they showed he was off his medication, he would be cross dressing and stuff like that.
Okay, I like this read because that is there. And when they have the his flashback to World War II when he's in drag at the USO show or
Like,
whatever, it's there if you're looking for it.
yeah. And um But I just like things like that. It make me think. I think it was like the writers were decently a progressive, so it does really sadden me to find out that they weren't willing to hire a female writer at the beginning.
Well, I mean, it's okay. They were right on some social issues, but do keep in mind they were all pretty well off financially.
Yeah.
They all went to Harvard. I mean, mostly went to Harvard.
Mm-hmm.
So these are all people, and they're all connected to the entertainment industry. So they're all from a certain kind of social
Oh yeah.
and economic class, and that informs the views you have. And you might be have your eyes open to homophobia is bad, racism is bad, but then you might not realize, hey, it's kind of fucked up that we are going to come out and say we don't want a woman to write on our show because that wouldn't be as fun. And then to all the things that you're also blind to that go well beyond,
Mm.
um,
And,
sort of polite Hollywood liberal social issues. But that's what's so interesting is I feel like it as a working class show in these early days, written by people who probably are not working class themselves, is so interesting.
like um another thing is like just like the like just looking at where this landed politically. Yes, they made fun of like the fact that Democrats don't do anything a lot of the time, but they were very clear that they were left leaning even from the beginning. Because no one who wasn't left leaning would make it a point to point into your show that that the Republican Party is just straight up evil.
Yeah.
Evil, and then make the two main villains of your show of Mr. Burns and Sideshow Bob both be right wing.
Um, for since I haven't seen, past season 14 or 15, is there any commentary on the Iraq War?
I don't remember.
I would be
They
surprised if
don't
there
talk
was,
about a lot of war stuff in the show.
but they did have a lot of Bill Clinton, and then once George W. Bush became president, I think part of this weird phenomenon of like you can a liberal Hollywood show can make fun of a Democratic president, but not a Republican president, because that would be that you just don't do that. And in
Uh,
particular, we're not going to make fun of the war in Iraq. We're certainly not going to say this is a bad thing that we're doing. We
uh,
shouldn't be doing this. I've always viewed it as like they have pretty typical Hollywood liberal views, which is,
I
on a global scale, probably pretty like old fashioned conservative, all things being considered.
well, to me, what's just so interesting about it is it's the fact that this was in the 90s, 90s. Like if the show had started right now, I would not be surprised at all about these things I see in it. But I personally think of things mainly before the 2010s of ends as there's a good chance there's going to be a lot of problematic stuff in it, and they're going to have some very right wing views, and shows. So seeing these things, and like as well, Smithers being gay, like it just surprises me that these things were a part of the show in the 90s, and they didn't shy away from that fact.
Hmm. Well, the reason I keep bringing up the working class thing is we talked about this when you were on our podcast about Spider-Man. You watch the Spider-Man movies over 20 years and Peter Parker goes from a working class guy to a guy who's best friends with a billionaire. And I feel like
Mm,
representation of people being working class and struggling has kind of gone away from media.
yeah.
I've been obsessed with this since the election because the Democratic Party did not do anything to try to win working class voters, was happy to lose
Yeah,
them to Trump, which was historically the reason the Democratic Party exists is to represent the interests of working class people. So I look at something from 1990 and you're like, this is a pretty good and compassionate view of a working class family struggling
mm-hmm.
against their evil rich boss. And I don't think they would tell the story this way today. It's like they
Yeah,
wouldn't even
no.
know that this exists for people. So
No.
that's why you can think of the past, you can think of media from the past as being backwards, but I find over and over and over again, especially when it comes to class, it was way more progressive than what's happening now.
Makes sense. Um, uh, the last thing I want to bring up, as I and this is not about this particular episode, just as the Simpsons as a whole, is that I love Sideshow Bob's journey Ernie throughout the show. Like there's not many characters who they actually like actively keep a canon for the character. Like he like when he started out, he was Krusty's assistant, and they had him be that for a few episodes before having him turn villainous. Is and I love that they actually did that and not just immediately he was villainous. And like as the show has gone on, they've pretty consistently kept canon with him outside of a few examples. It was like there's even a point where he gets his own family, and they he also and like they're also psychopaths just like him who want to kill Bart. It's and I think that's really cool. There was and they still like I think to this day have unique things that they do with Sideshow Bob. Like there was a recent episode where he wasn't trying to kill Bart at all because so he got out of prison, and this was like one time where he got out of prison like normally of just finishing his sentence, and he became a mall Santa, and he refused to kill Bart while he was doing that because he's a method actor and Santa wouldn't do that. And him and Bart end up teaming up in the episode to solve a mystery. And I think that's a lot of fun. There's also a Treehouse of Horror episode where he ends up killing Bart, but then Bart then we in the past, but then we're shown him in the future, or where they do a parody of Hannibal Lecter, or with him, and I just like I don't love the actor who plays him, but I love the character of
He's very
Sideshow
good.
Bob and
He's very good as Bob.
and his journey throughout the show.
Yeah, he's great. That's why. Have you ridden the Simpsons ride at Universal Studios?
I have not. I would love to be able to do something like that, I've sadly not really been able to go to any theme parks in my life.
Yes. Well, hey, it's expensive as shit, and just getting more
Yep.
so. I haven't been in a long time, but the Simpsons ride, which I mean, hey, who knows if it's even going to be around much longer? I think it seems like Disney's going to take back the Simpsons from
If
Universal.
I
But
mean, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me, especially after another iconic ride. I just got shut down with the Muppet Vision in ride.
oh, Muppet Vision is so good. It that fucking sucks.
Oh man,
But the Simpsons ride, Sideshow Bob is the villain on the ride. It's
nice.
perfect. It's a great ride. Try to get the $15,000 it will take to go to Universal Studios and ride the ride
Uh,
at least once if you can.
oh yeah, I would love to be able to do that. Add in like to be honest, like on our side of the country of the East Coast, I think Universal is the theme park I would probably most want to go to, because I think they have a lot more variety versus like going to Disneyland, and it's mainly just like the classic Disney stuff. For I don't know if it's Disneyland or Disney World that's on
It's
our side, but
Disney World. Disney World is in Florida,
okay,
and
Disney
there's
World.
there's a lot there, but Universal's kind of kicking their ass right
Yeah,
now.
I definitely would rather like go to Universal. If I could get to California, I would want to go to Disneyland just because as a fan of Marvel, I would want to go to their Avengers campus. But at least on our side of the country, I would definitely want to go to Universal because they have a lot of cool looking stuff. One thing particularly me, just because I'm a Hulk fan, I want to try their Hulk coaster.
It's I've ridden it once. I can't do upside down coasters. I get sick. And it's not,
Understandable.
it's just a roller, like there's Hulk stuff on it, but once you're on the roller coaster, it's
Yeah.
just a roller coaster.
Mm-hmm. Like for me, I can go upside down, but the thing that makes me get uneasy on a roller coaster is when it's a roller coaster where you're not in like an actual like a complete platform, so your legs are moving just moving around in the wind, and and when that happens and they go upside down, you feel like you might actually fall out. I'm just like, that's where I feel freaked out
Yeah.
and want to throw
No,
up from
no,
it
thank
versus
you.
like
Yeah.
versus if it's like a complete platform. I have something my feet sit on. I'm tightly in. There's a metal bar across my chest. As I'm a lot more willing to go upside down on rides.
Yeah. Yeah. It's yeah. I've never had the stomach for it, and it's just getting worse. Like even things like I
Mm-hmm.
rode a Ferris wheel with my son, and that was too much for me. So I'm becoming a wimp. Um, I guess
Yeah.
final. I want to. I'm glad that the Simpsons lives on. You love the Simpsons. My
Mm-hmm.
14-year-old loves the Simpsons and has forever. My 8-year-old who has autism is largely nonverbal. He's started to get into the Simpsons because
Nice.
I was drawing with him, and when I draw, I just draw Simpsons. And he was then scrolling through Disney Plus and saw the Simpsons on Disney Plus and came and got me and brought me to the TV and like showed me. And I was like, oh,
Mm,
Simpsons. And so now he demands that I draw Simpsons with him, and he will watch Simpsons by himself. Its legacy will never die, and
I
that
love
I'm so
that.
glad, so glad that that is the case.
I'm really glad that you've been able to find a way to bond with your son through The Simpsons. That's really cool.
And just hearing him say Simpsons, Simpsons, um, and
Hey,
if
one of
you're a
these days, he might start saying "do."
yeah, he will. It's coming, it's coming. If you're a boss, if you own a nuclear plant or any kind of company, give your employees Christmas bonuses. God damn it. It is cruel not to give employees bonuses. That is a pay cut. If they get a bonus every year and then you don't give it to them, you are cutting their pay, and they need that. They need that. They rely on that. And to any of my clients listening, pay me, please, pay me a bonus. Um, and that's it.
Definitely. And everyone, please check out Matt on the Low Bearing Beans podcast. As the show is a lot of fun. I recently went on their Spider-Man episode, and it was great. If you like raunchy humor like me, you're gonna love their podcast.
Start with that episode and then go backward. Yeah, we have Home Alone 2, While You Were Sleeping, and the Santa Claus coming up the month of December. When is this
Nice.
coming out? When is this coming out?
This will be coming out. I believe. Let me see. Let me look at my calendar. I will be releasing this episode on Tuesday the 17th, and which
When the show
is
premiered.
yeah, it's the 35th anniversary of the show, which was not a planned thing for me. I literally just had decided I wanted to do a Christmas a Simpsons episode with you, and then just this week I realized, oh, this date will match up perfectly with my normal schedule
That's
for
crazy.
my
Yeah,
podcast.
December 17th, 1989. Also the day Taylor Swift was born, interestingly. Um, it's so weird to think of The Simpsons as a show that started in the 80s, because to me it's a 90s show, but for two
Oh
weeks it
yeah,
was an 80s show.
yeah. It definitely is what weird to think of it as an '80s show. But and that's why whenever I'm referencing like referencing early Simpsons of ends like with their how they talk about politically, I'm always saying in the 90s. I'll never be like, oh, in the 80s. Was it in
They took
oh
Ronald Reagan to
now
task.
I have now I've said that I've watched watch every episode of Simpsons plus the Simpsons movie. That when I say that though, I am not including the Tracy Ullman show shorts, and the main reason for that is they're hard to find.
Can't find them. Yeah, yeah. I
I
haven't.
I've seen some of them, and the main reason I've seen some of them is because some of them have appeared aired as couch gags for as the start of actual Simpsons episodes. Particularly whenever they have a milestone episode, there's a lot of the time they will have they will play one of those old shorts, or it's the beginning.
Yeah, and they are in the Simpsons 138th episode clip show. They show
Hmm.
some shorts, but yeah, Matt Groening says he says he's embarrassed by them. I think there's just rights issues with Fox and with Tracy Ullman, because
Probably.
if they could make money off of this, they'd find a way.
I mean, there are a lot of old shows where it's just like I'm like, why are you not putting this on any kind of streaming service? Like um, I I've recently actually just bought all of the '70s Hawk TV show. And I've been wanting that for a while because it's not on any streaming service. Is and I don't understand why not. Like I feel like either this would be either it's owned by Disney now or it's owned by Universal. Either way, both of them have streaming services. They could put it on there, and I
Well,
think there's
there's
a lot of people who would like watching the show.
the promise of streaming was like everything's going to be available, and then they were like, wait, we're not going to make enough money off of that, so not
Mm-hmm.
everything's going to be available. Also, there's always weird rights things with stuff with
Yeah.
music. With music, if music's in a TV show, that you have to license it again for streaming, and for a lot of companies, it's like it's not worth paying the money for Smash Trivia John to be able to watch the Incredible Hulk from the
Yeah.
'70s on Peacock.
And
But
yeah, that's understandable. It's also like um I for the '70s Talk Show until I bought the show, bought all of the episodes on DVD. I've been having to use not so legal methods to watch it just because I'm not spending $3 every episode to rent it.
mm,
That would get expensive quickly.
all right, well, tell me afterward which service this is you're talking about, because I need to.
Well, I'm looking just on Google. It'll say like it's I don't know what the exact number is, but it's like $1 to $3 or something that across all of the different services that you can rent the show. I'm like,
No, I want to
why
know how
is
to watch
what?
something not legally. I don't know
Oh,
anymore.
okay,
I did when I was younger. Um,
okay. No,
The Simpsons has so much music in it, and I am grateful. Disney's an evil company that I would like to burn to the ground, but I'm grateful that Disney Plus has all of Simpsons episodes with
no.
all of the original music, and you can
That
always just watch it
To be
anytime.
honest,
But
like The Simpsons has been the main thing that's made my Disney Plus subscription worth
I
it.
think that's true for a lot of people. I think that like that itself might have
they
paid for them buying Fox.
it really annoys me because I'm like, 'cause I'm like, if if this were any other streaming service and they released as little new content as what Disney Plus does, everybody would be pissed.
But it's like paying your water bill. Like I have to pay the Disney Plus bill this month for The Simpsons, and that's
That's like,
all the streaming services. My wife
mhm,
watches Bob's Burgers on Hulu every night. That's why we paid
mhm.
$18 a month for Hulu for 10 years. Because where else? That's it's the Bob's Burgers bill.
Oh man.
Uh, but people, if you're watching early Simpsons on Disney Plus, you got to go into your settings and make sure that they display it in the right aspect ratio, because they will play it in 16:9, which is not how it should look. Please make sure you do this. When my son did this on his Disney Plus profile, he did not take this step, and I had to correct him.
And when you corrected him, what was he like? yeah, this looks so much better. I
No,
don't think.
he didn't give a fuck. But it's not about him. And when you go to your parents' house, you have to turn off motion smoothing. If you're going home for Christmas this year, take out their remote, Google their brand of TV, and turn off motion smoothing, please. That's all I got to say.
Yeah. Well, oh, again, everybody check out Matt on the Low Berry Beats podcast.
Thank you.
And thank you everyone for listening. If you like this game analysis, please give a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or a 5-star rating on Spotify. I love to hear your thoughts on the episodes. Please let me know. If you'd like to listen to more from me, please subscribe. Many more game analysis from me coming. So keep on the lookout. This again is your host, Smash Jerry John, signing off.